Kiyon Nourain looks like he's on the play here. He's playing not exactly a pure stock list. He's got, oh, never mind, I didn't see the key rune over here. This looks basically exactly like the list I saw Owen Turtenwald playing, except for he has one main deck Golgari Charm, which I do not believe that Owen had in his list.
Yeah, there are some slight differences here. It looks like Kiyon's going to take a mulligan. Again, Turtenwald and Reed Duke playing a very similar list this weekend. Golgari Charm was not in their main deck. They also had 3 Liliana Veils in the sideboard, none in the main there. So, I mean, some minor cosmetic differences, but the overall strategy, of course, is the same.
A thing to think about that's kind of fun, Golgari Charm, yet another weapon that you could have at your disposal if you wanted to fight an elf.
And, you know, that's a card I think is going to pick up a lot, Adrian, because it is very, very good from Jund. It can fight elves, it can take care of Burning Earth. That's a very difficult card for them to be able to beat. It's a charm. It's versatile. That's what charms are supposed to be.
I'm actually curious if we're going to see things otherwise emerge, other creative ways to handle things. Rakdos Charm, maybe just as a dome spell from a red-black aggressive deck. Okay, what do we have from Jared?
From Jared's deck list here, he's got 2 Vampire Nighthawks main among the stock creatures, 4 Huntmaster of the Fells, 4 Thraktos, 3 Olivia Voldaren, and 2 Scavenging Ooze. He's also got, again, a bevy of spells and 3 Pillar of Flame, 1 Tragic Slip, 2 Abrupt Decays, 2 Mizium Mortars, a Putrefy. He only has 2 Bonfire of the Damned. Normally you see that as a 4 of nowadays in Jund. And then 2 copies of Rakdos' Return, which looks to be the industry standard moving forward, a Rakdos Key Rune, and of course, 4 Farseeks.
I kind of wonder if he has built his deck because of the existence of those 2 Vampire Nighthawks in the main, more specifically for the kind of aggressive match that you would see from, let's say, Naya Humans, Red-Green Blitz, Mono Red. Just, that's a very strong dedication to trying to win against a particular kind of aggressive deck.
Yeah. It's a very loud announcement that you're trying to beat a certain type of opponent by starting some Nighthawks in your main deck. And we talked about Golgari Charm. Oddly enough, Guttshall has 3 copies of those in his sideboard. A card that, again, has a lot of versatility. He has got a lot of cards in his sideboard, actually, that he's looking to beat Bant Hexproof with. He has 3 Liliana the Veils. He's got 1 Devour Flesh and 3 Golgari Charms, so maybe that's exactly why you see those. As Kiyon's going to start off with a Woodland Cemetery here, and Guttshall has a Blood Crypt to pass the turn back. So game number 2 here of round 10 between Guttshall and Nourain is underway. And here's a Scavenging Ooze, but take a look at that second land in Kessig Wolf Run. Kind of a loud announcement that, hey, I don't have a lot of lands, but Guttshall, he has a Farseek, so he has the, quote, nut draw here from the Jund deck.
I know that a lot of people love their Scavenging Oozes, and I'm one of them, but if I were in this game, I would want to be playing a turn 2 Farseek instead of a turn 2 Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, all day, every day. You want Farseek, you want to get the Huntmaster Olivia Voldaren right away, and as powerful a card as Scavenging Ooze is, it's not more powerful than Farseek in the opening turns of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I'm really curious to see, I have not watched a Jund mirror since M14 has released. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see what it makes, what the fight is about. Is it the fight that it used to be before, or has Scavenging Ooze changed the dynamics?
You see a Dragon Skull Summit there for Nourain, so he's going to play that and pass the turn back. So it looks like he's on a bit of a buddy land draw here, and he is down a game, so fumbling around right now, not advisable, as he cannot afford to pick up another loss if he wants to make top 8 of this tournament, as Guttshall has a Dragon Skull Summit of his own, and now has a Huntmaster of the Fells.
Exactly like you called it out a few turns ago, or a few moments ago, that turn 3 Huntmaster, part of this fight almost certainly is about maintaining your life total while developing the board and then getting over the top with something that's more relevant than the other player has. A Huntmaster is definitely a card that's quite relevant if it can flip. And in the meantime, it'll build up the life and make the board more gummed up. In comes the Ooze.
That tapped Overgrown Tomb, a pretty loud announcement here from Nourain that he doesn't have a 4-drop, so that means no Huntmaster of the Fells, no Olivia Voldaren. So what is he holding? It looks like at least 1 Thraktos, maybe a card like Garruk Primal Hunter as well. He just has to pass the turn back. That means that this is flipping.
That is amazing.
That's devastating. Ravager of the Fells showing up, 2 damage to the Ooze, 2 upstairs to Nourain. So Guttshall's draw looks much better than Nourain's this
Absolutely. Game. I mean, playing that Overgrown Tomb before combat, I think that might have influenced the choice of whether or not to block with that wolf.
Yeah. So now in comes the Ravager and the Wolf token.
In they come, 6 damage. It's going to knock a third of Nourain's life total off should it connect, and it does. Are we going to see a Thragtusk? Are we going to see a Garruk?
It looks like we actually just see a Kessig Wolf Run activation.
That's during combat, before damage.
And actually, no, this is going to be morbided, and the reason that it's going to be morbided, again, is because that Huntmaster of the Fells flipped into Ravager of the Fells. It took down Scavenging Ooze, and you can actually see Nourain point to the Scavenging Ooze and say, hey, that died.
Yep.
So, not as bad as it could have been. Actually, pretty good.
Pretty solid.
All things considered for Nourain, where it looked like he may be out in this game before it even got started, but that Tragic Slip kind of saves him, and if he has a 5th mana source, he can play a Thragtusk and start to get a little bit more stable.
Let's see what happens. We see the Thragtusk in Nourain's hand. There it is.
All right, so Rootbound Crag, Thragtusk, up 5 life, up to 19, passes the turn back, so all of a sudden, it looks like Nourain is right back in this game, Adrian.
Yeah, and if Jared was planning on using that Kessig Wolf Run for only 2 extra damage, I kind of wonder, what is his hand? Is his hand just full of, maybe he's got a Rakdos Returns he's waiting for another turn for?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. If he's Wolf Running on that turn, it's here comes the Wolf token, so this screams that he wants to maybe activate Wolf Run again. And yeah, that means that his hand is pretty dry. I mean, it can't mean anything else.
I see Thragtusk in his hand. I see Huntmaster of the Fells.
Yep.
Didn't catch anything else. We see a pump there on his Wolf to finish off the Thragtusk by Nourain. Nourain, of course, replaces it with a Beast.
And he's going to untap. So all of a sudden, wow, Nourain looks like he's in the driver's seat of this game. Yes, Guttshall has a Huntmaster of the Fells and a Thragtusk in his hand, but if Nourain, as he's going to start here by attacking for 3 and no Wolf Run activation, that means he has a follow-up to play, and it looks like it might be another Thragtusk, or is this going to be a Garruk? It is going to be a Thragtusk.
Yeah. One of the awesome things about Thragtusk, you know, a lot of people have said, oh, Thragtusk isn't very good anymore. That's some crazy talk. Thragtusk is still great. Let's pretend that Jared were to Miracle a Bonfire. That would be a great draw to clear the board, but there'd still be a Beast left over, and Nourain would still be above 20. Well, he would actually be at 19 life if Jared went all in on it. That's assuming a draw that would be otherwise devastating against almost anything else on the table.
Olivia Voldaren going to show up here for Guttshall. This is the kind of card, and this is why I love Olivia Voldaren. It basically says to your opponent, hey, do you have the answer? Because if you don't, this wins the game all by itself. Nourain going to quickly untap, signifying that he does have the answer. Is it Bonfire the Damned? It's not. Does he have a removal spell like a Dreadbore or a Putrefy to take care of that 3/3 flying vampire?
Let's find out. If he does not have an answer to the Olivia, it seems likely that he does. If he doesn't, Olivia can just take everything over.
Yeah, all by its lonesome. And, you know, it won't be the last time that we've seen it. Certainly won't be the first time either that we've seen Olivia Voldaren win a game by itself. You see Nourain is going to move around his mana, try to figure out how he wants to go about doing this turn. Looks like he may have a Rakdos' Return in his hand right now. Not entirely sure what the last 2 cards are over there, but it looks like he cares a little bit more about this Olivia than he originally let on.
Yeah. Now, if you think about how devastating a single Olivia can be in a constructed format, just remember what that was like in Limited, a sealed deck. Good lord.
I'd rather not remember that, actually, because I ended up losing to it quite a bit. As Dreadbore is going to take care of that Olivia Voldaren. Into play untapped comes a Blood Crypt. Going to attack, we're going to see a Kessig Wolf Run activation on that token. Going to make it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is the attack. Guttshall's going to go down to 5.
You know, if, nope, he didn't do anything. I would have liked to have made that Thragtusk into a vampire before it went away.
Yeah, at least get a shot in there.
Yeah.
I'm with you. You know, it's free of charge, especially if you don't have a spell to play. As here's a Huntmaster of the Fells and a Vampire Nighthawk. Gonna trigger that. And we'll see if he did it trigger it in time, because the way that he played this turn, he went Huntmaster of the Fells, played Nighthawk, trigger my Huntmaster of the Fells. And that is poor order of operations. We'll see what the ruling is going to be here from our judge of the table, but Nourain is not in the wrong here, Adrian.
Yeah, I mean, if Jared said verbally, Huntmaster of the Fells, make a wolf, Nighthawk, he would certainly get a wolf.
Yep.
But if Jared said Huntmaster of the Fells, Nighthawk, Nourain pointing out, hey buddy, you missed it.
Yep.
That's true.
Yeah. And again, it is your trigger to remember. Here comes the Dragon Skull Summit in with both of its creatures, again representing a lethal attack. We see how Guttshall is going to move around some creatures to try to get some blocks going here. There's a big Wolfrun activation there on a beast token. That activation is going to be for 5, so that beast is going to have 8 power. 8 minus the 2 is going to be 6. That's not going to get the game over with yet. And you see, here's what's important here, Adrian, is that the Nighthawk's in front of the Thragtusk. It's going to kill that Thragtusk, put a beast token into play, and if Guttshall is able to maybe miracle a Bonfire of the Damned, he's looking a lot better.
Now, interestingly, 10, 3, 7. God, that Nighthawk, it's keeping him alive. You know, it's the 3 on the one end, and Jared's like, well, let's go.
This is surprising here because, okay, so the Wolfrun activation on the beast makes it an 8.
Plus 5.
8 minus 2 is 6. So that means Guttshall, assuming our life totals are correct, 8 minus 2 is 6. So that means that would put him at 1, and then the Vampire Nighthawk's lifelink would actually put him up to 3. So I'm a little bit surprised to see a concession there out of nowhere, assuming that our life totals were correct, which, but what I noticed they were, so maybe that was a hasty concession by Guttshall?
Well, I mean, there is the possibility that our numbers were off. I don't think that they were. I felt like the numbers seemed to make sense the whole way through. Alternately, you know, we saw a couple of plays from Jared. It looks like it's been a long day. Oh, I've certainly made my share of, gosh, you know, I think this is over. Okay, it's done, and I'm just dropping it off. Okay, there we shoot. Jared apparently was at 5.
So Jared was at 5. So you have a Wolfrun activation for 5. 8 plus 8. So the 8 minus the 2 is 6, plus the lifelink from the Nighthawk. So he's at a virtual 7, and then 8 minus 2 is 6, so that should put him down to 1. So what I think ends up happening there is that he doesn't understand the interaction with lifelink and how it resolves now, because it's not a trigger anymore. It just happens simultaneously.
I mean, in the old days, as in maybe a few months, not a few months, a couple of years ago at this point, he would have been definitely dead with the lifelink on the stack. But these days, it happens at the same time.
Now, the reason that we had him at 7 life is because we assumed that he was going to hit the... We assumed that he had remembered the enters the battlefield trigger for Master of the Fells, so he was actually at... We had him at 7, he was actually at 5. But even if he was at 5, he still doesn't die that turn, so it's a bit of a misstep there for Guttshall. And now the mistakes, because that single mistake compounds into another mistake of conceding the game a little hasty. And I hope his top card of the deck wasn't Bonfire of the Damned or something to get him back into that game, because if so, he might be beating himself up over that. Luckily for him, as we're back here in the booth, Cedric Phillips, Adrian Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in New Jersey, he has a 3rd game to play to actually be able to take this match. And what it looks like this match is going to be for him is a match playing for top 8 between Guttshall and Nourain.
One of the things maybe might be to his benefit, or it might be not to his benefit, it might be to his detriment. His opponent has gone, and he'll be right back, but that moment is what's going to happen. Is he going to stew in his mistake? Or is he going to take a breath and recover?
I mean, this is an important moment for Guttshall, because I think he realizes, okay, not the best game of Magic I've ever played. Okay? Luckily for me, I have a 3rd and final game to play. How do I bounce back from this? Because, you know, maybe I let one slip away from me there where, you know, we were a little surprised to see Nourain actually be able to get back into the game, kind of fumbling around. Guttshall had the turn 2 Farseek and a turn 3 Huntmaster, had Olivia Valderin, ends up losing that game. I think Guttshall had the better draw of the 2 players. But Nourain used his resources correctly, ends up winning that game after a mistake from Guttshall and what looks to be a hasty concession. As you said, he has a moment right now where he can get even more frustrated and upset, or he can recover, reassess, take a look at his sideboard, make sure his configuration is where he wants it based off the information he saw for game number 2, and move forward.
Absolutely. Now, I know at different points in my career, I would have been one version of that, and at different points, I would be the other. And
I feel the exact same way.
I can think of a moment, losing a match actually, where it was my fault, I messed up, and I tilted so hard that the next 2 rounds I lost because I was just not in it. Just not in it. And you know what? One of the things that you can do when you are trying to work on your own just way of handling the game, if you can trust your friends to at some point give you a critique, an honest critique, and like listen to them. They watch you play a lot. If you play a lot of Magic, you're going to get an opportunity to have them give you some resource back and be like, you know, hey, you get really mad, take a breath.
It's a skill, which is funny to say, but you know, young Cedric would be very mad right now. 20-year-old Cedric going to Purdue University, playing in PTQs in Chicago and everywhere else every weekend instead of studying at school, he would be very angry right now. 25-year-old Cedric or 26-year-old Cedric, he would not be as upset. So I 100% agree with you. At different points in your career, you handle this kind of situation differently. I'm actually envisioning myself right now playing in the Chicago PTQ. You and I have been at many events together. I would be steamed up. Unreasonably so. What's getting mad gonna do? Doesn't do anything. It's gonna be a detriment to my next game in the following rounds. But, you know, as you play a lot more competitive Magic, you understand how to handle your emotions, realizing that in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal because I can still win the game and probably draw in the top 8 next round. Let's just take a breath, as Shu said, reassess, and move forward. And we'll see if Guttshall can do it, because you can look at him right now, kind of looking down. He looks a little bit frustrated, maybe a little angry at himself at what happened, maybe a little upset with Nourain for, you know, pointing out that Hunt Master of the Fell Trigger, saying, come on, man, really? But it's within his right to do that. He's not breaking any rules, playing by the rules of the game. So how is Jared Guttshall going to handle this third and final game? That's what we're going to find out.
One of the things you see at some of the lower levels of competitive play is you see a lot of people going rage and getting their rage on, and you know what happens? It doesn't really help them. At the highest levels of the game, it is very rare to see the top players at the Pro Tour rage out. Why? Because it doesn't help you. They are up there at the top levels of the Pro Tour basically because they are not only good players, but when those moments happen, when they could just crumble, they get it back together.
Best example I can think of, and you're probably familiar with this guy, Luis Scott Vargas. Never really see him get upset at a tournament.
When have you ever seen, say, Reed Duke? When have you seen him throwing something during coverage or getting mad or stomping around? Just don't see it happen.
No. The greats do not get upset. They reassess. They are accountable for their mistake, and they move forward. And that's why they're the best.
Yeah. Chris Bakula, in the lead up to the Hall of Fame race, or the Hall of Fame voting, said one of his strengths was looking at his own play and honestly saying, yeah, I messed up. And the game begins. Turn 1 duress from Nourain, and we see a bonfire. And 2, is that the new Ooze arts?
Yeah, that's 2 copies of Scavenging Ooze, a bunch of lands, and a Bonfire of the Damned. Now, Adrian, is this the best keep in this matchup?
I think it's a terrible opening hand.
I do not think that this is the best hand that you can have available in this matchup. We're looking at a hand of no Farseek, no Olivia Waldera, no Hunt Master of the Fells. None of the really important cards in a Jund Mirror. Scavenging Ooze is a really good Magic card, but how good of a card is it really as a stomping ground? Is the draw for Guttshall here, plays a Woodland Cemetery, gonna play a Scavenging Ooze, but this isn't a hand that has a huge effect in this matchup.
I mean, you don't win this matchup by putting down bears and fighting.
And now here's a Farseek for Kiyon Nourain. So now he's the one accelerating. He's the one taking the initiative back. And you see his hand. He has cards, that are very relevant in this matchup. In opening turn Farseek, he has a Rakdos' Return in his hand. So now Guttshall's going to try to race, but the Jund deck can gain so much life. You can't race this thing downhill. As another land drawn here for Guttshall.
I mean, what are you going to do here if you're Jared? Are you going to drop the next Ooze and then have just 4 power in play? All it takes is 1 Hunt Master of the Fells. It's completely negated out, and then Jared has no spells in hand. That Hunt Master can just immediately flip and take care of something. I mean, looking at Jared looks just a little bit out of the game. He looks a little rattled.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a level of frustration here for him, and, you know, if he comes back, is he going to attack here with the Scavenging Ooze? Maybe he comes back, watches this match later after this tournament is over. You know, I think he might realize some of the mistakes that he ended up making here about just getting rattled. And I don't want to write him off yet, but we're looking at a hand that has Scavenging Ooze and lands in it versus Nourain, who's at 3 mana, draws a Garruk Primal Hunter, another card that's fantastic in the mirror. Stomping Ground going to come and play tapped. He's going to further his mana base here with a Farseek. And, you know, again, Guttshall can have a running draws here to get himself back into this game, but it's an uphill climb.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, at this point, you might be saying to yourself, you know, but Cedric, but Adrian, he's down to 14. He's got a clock on him. Those clocks erase so quickly in the face of Huntmaster and in the face of Thragtusk.
And Thragtusk is the one I was going to bring up. One Thragtusk undoes all the work that Scavenging Ooze did. And this is in a matchup where Scavenging Ooze is going to grow as another land is drawn here for Guttshall.
Goodness.
That's a Kessid Wolf Run. At least it's a land that actually does something with the rest of those lands, but there are no spells there.
Yeah. What are we going to see from Jared? Is he going to go +1 damage this turn? I mean, honestly, I feel like +1 damage this turn is better than laying the second ooze.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing as well is that if he wasn't going to commit the second ooze the previous turn, I can't imagine he would commit it now. But I mean, I could be wrong. Looks like he was considering playing a Kessig Wolfrun. He comes across for 2, and looks like he is going to commit the second Scavenging Ooze now, opening himself to maybe getting bonfired for 2, hard cast, or Bond for a Miracle, clearing those things up. Kiyon Nourain's going to draw his card for the turn.
Rakdos returns.
Yep. That's going to be a second one, so he's going to go for 3. There goes 3 lands for Guttshall. Guttshall thankfully playing out that Kessig Wolfrun, so that doesn't bite the dust, as he's going to draw a card here for the turn.
Another land for Jared, I believe. That looked like a forest.
It did look like a land here for him.
No,
it's a Farseek. Might as well be a land.
Yeah. And he can knock Nourain down to 8.
Yep.
If he casts that Farseek, he'll have enough mana. Should he top deck a Garruk or top deck a Thragtusk, he could cast it. But you know what? There are a lot of cards in Nourain's hand right now.
And there's a relevant one in Thragtusk. Going to push Nourain up to 13, put a 5/3 in the way of those 2/2/2 Scavenging Oozes.
The Kessig Wolfrun in Jared's side of the board can do +2 damage on the coming turn. So one of these cards gets blocked, he can +2 for the trample over, get in a total of 3 damage and kill the Thragtusk, but that's still not a great place to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's getting rid of 1/2 of Thragtusk here. Scavenging Ooze is going to remove a couple of cards from the graveyard of Kiyon Nourain. Not going to grow the Ooze, but might as well get those out of there as far as good operations are concerned for future games, as Guttshall is going to draw a card for the turn. Looks to be a Mizzium Mortars off of the top. Do not think that was a Bonfire of the Damned. So is he going to fire away to clear out the first half of this Thragtusk? Looks like that's going to be what he does. So front end of Thragtusk going to bite the dust. Does give the Scavenging Ooze a little bit of fodder, thankfully.
Yep. Now, there are no Dead Bridge chants in Nourain's sideboard, so basically the activation on that Ooze earlier, it didn't actually mean anything in the long term, but in case there was Dead Bridge chance, it would have potentially mattered.
Yeah, and I think it's just good for good operations in other matchups. Like if he's playing against Blue, White, Red Flash, which is a Snapcaster Mage deck, or if he's playing against, Esper, if you have the spare mana, you have nothing to do with it, you might as well get in the habit of removing cards from the graveyard.
And now Jared just stops short and says, oh my god.
Oh boy.
Wow.
This is insult to injury, that Miracle Bonfire the Damned there for Nourain. So he is going to pay the Miracle cost. It's going to be for 1, 2, 3. Is he going to make it the full amount here?
He does.
He's going to make it 4 from the Bonfire the Damned off the top. Scavenging is going to be able to remove Thragtusk, so Guttshall is going to be able to gain a life, but now his board is absolutely decimated, and we know that Nourain has a Garruk Primal Hunter in his hand and other great options. Scavenging Ooze is going to bite the dust.
Away they go. Now we're going to have to see. He's going to need, I think, to draw a Garruk Primal Hunter right now to even have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I think that's the best card that Guttshall can draw. He's got 5 mana.
That's
All right.
Second best choice.
Thragtusk is pretty good. Going to put Guttshall up to 16, give him a 5/3 body, and pass the turn back. As Nourain's going to draw a card, let's say Huntmaster of the Fells.
Now remember, there's a Garruk in his hand, there's a Rakdos Returns in his hand. He is still full of gas. And honestly, in a Thragtusk fight, if the board is already gummed up, the best quote-unquote Thragtusk in my mind is Garruk Primal Hunter.
You know the worst feeling? You want to know what the worst feeling is when you're playing against John? When they stop playing lands. Because that means they have all spells, and he is stopped at 5, has Nourain. There's a Huntmaster of the Fells with a Tragic Slip available via Overgrown Tomb. He's going to get his Wolf and 2 life, but this is the worst feeling in the world, where they just stop playing spells, and they just stop playing lands and just have all spells in their hand because all their spells are so darn good.
A Bonfire there would have been awesome from Jared, but nope, no Bonfire.
Yeah, and Jared's deck list only has 2 in the main deck and no more in the sideboard. You take a look at Nourain's, he's got 4 Bonfire the Damned in his deck.
Jared thinking here, if he comes on in, a double block from Nourain would kill his Thragtusk. And if he doesn't come on in, well, playing D, that's an option, but that Huntmaster of the Fells is certainly flipping.
Yeah. So Guttshall, considering his options with Thragtusk, looks like he's getting into the red zone with that. Can threaten a Wolfrun activation of 2. Can make that a 7 power Thragtusk if he'd like to. Depends on really what he drew this turn, which he's hidden well from you guys at home as well as us here in the booth. But it does not look to be of much relevance as a Wolfrun activation. Going to make it so that 7 points of damage come through. But what that also means, Adrian, is that Huntmaster of the Fells is going to be flipping into Ravager of the Fells. And he doesn't play the Forest in his hand. I caught a glimpse of it, so it looked like he missed a point of damage on a Wolfrun activation.
Well, I mean, if he lays the Forest, though, for that Wolfrun activation, he gives Nourain perfect information. So there is that.
I mean, he does give him perfect information.
But he should lay it after that combat.
I mean, he gives him perfect information, yes, but I think that point of damage actually going to end up mattering in this game with the Wolfrun. I mean, it would leave Nourain at 7, and I think every point of damage actually ends up mattering here.
I wonder, though, if he lays it, if Nourain just double blocks.
I think I'd be fine with a double block. Get those things out of the way. I get my 3/3 Beast token. I don't have to worry about a Ravager of the Fells and a Wolf token like the board is right now.
No, I mean, I apologize for saying that. I think if he lays it, he can't get the double block. I think that,
sure. So he's trying to entice the double block.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to communicate. Here we have the attack, a Beast, a Ravager of the Fells, a Wolf, all coming in, and then the tragic slip plus the 2 damage from the flip finishes off the creature in play.
Yep. And Nourain is going to pass the turn back, daring Guttshall to draw a Bonfire of the Damned. Huntmaster of the Fells is going to flip back into its normal form. Wolf token, 2 life going to be coming up here for Nourain. We'll see exactly what the spell is. It's a 3rd Scavenging Ooze.
Well, that's not so terrible. There's 2 oozes in his own yard, a Thrag Tusk in his own yard.
Yeah.
I don't think Nourain has any current creatures that are dead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's going to get the job done in this situation
not
for
good
Guttshall.
Not good enough, right? It's only 3 life that he can gain.
Yeah, and you see him doing the math here right now. Looks like he's going to turn everything sideways. Is Nourain. Might see a couple Ooze activations here, but I think Guttshall is going to come to the same conclusion that we do.
There it is.
Kiyon Nourain is going to win the Jund Mir match, defeating Jared Guttshall 2-1. And with any luck, Kiyon Nourain, you have the opportunity to draw into the top 8 next round.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I had not yet watched the Jund Mirror, and that was actually kind of interesting to watch. There's a lot of different things that are a little different. Scavenging Ooze, such a powerful card, but in the old Jund Mirror, when you would lay that ground seal in that situation, I kind of, in that early game situation anyway, it seems like a better early game play. Now, in the Mirror. Now,